Hello, everyone. We're just going to give everyone a chance to join and then we'll get started. All right, let's jump into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, AI and HR and How Artificial Intelligence is Transforming the Workplace. We're excited to have you with us today. So just a quick poll before we get into anything, just to make sure you're warmed up. We're going to be talking about, are you currently utilizing AI in your professional life? So just take a few seconds and answer that. Help us get started and warmed up for today's session. Amazing. Lots of answers coming in. Thank you. So before we get started here today, just a few quick housekeeping notes that I'll go over. Today's conversation should run about 60 minutes, including Q&A at the end if time permits. So please submit your questions anytime using the Q&A box, and we'll cover as many as we can before we wrap up. And if we don't have a chance to get to yours, we'll call you back. We'll try and answer it. We'll do our best to make sure that your questions do get all answered on this. A recording of today's session, along with the slides, will be shared with you this afternoon. And don't forget, all attendees are eligible to receive one SHRM credit if you stay with us for 50 minutes or more, and we'll provide details on how to claim that following the session. Let me give you a quick introduction of MP Wired for HR. If you've never joined us for a webinar before, MP offers a full human capital management platform, payroll, time, benefits, recruiting, performance management, everything you would expect from a big box provider. But what makes MP different is our service and expertise. We deliver white glove support 100% on time and headache-free implementation and a dedicated team of SHRM certified HR professionals, like the speakers we have today, who speakers like Paul, who partner with you beyond just technology. We prefer the proactive approach, and we help businesses of all sizes not only run payroll, but also solve real compliance and HR challenges like AI. So let's meet your speaker for today is Paul Corellis, our VP of HR Services, and Paul has nearly 2 decades of experience in the HR consulting space. Working with businesses of all sizes and industries, Paul leads a team of SHRM certified HR professionals at MP, and together they assist clients with the compliance training, and HR guidance and support for the full employee lifecycle. At MP, our mission is simple: to make HR compliance less complicated and give you the clarity, tools, and backup you need to lead with confidence. So, I know I'm not the person you want to hear from today, and we're all itching to get to Paul. But I'm going to launch one more um, poll for you, and then we will. Oh, no, I'm not. All right, Paul, it is over to you.
Thank you so much, Katie. Howdy, everybody. Good afternoon. Some interesting results there on our poll. It looked like it kind of hit on me, but looked like the most common answer was that yes, a lot of people are using AI in their professional lives, but maybe not every day. So using it occasionally, kind of dipping their toe in the water a little bit. I think when I talk to HR leaders, business owners, things like that, I think that's a pretty common sentiment. We did a lot of education and presentations on AI. I think it was probably 2 years ago in 2024, and it was definitely different back then. There was a lot of people that weren't consciously using AI in their work lives, that were kind of hesitant, maybe had set up a Chat GPT account, maybe not, maybe had tried it out for one thing or another, but definitely wasn't ingrained in their business practices. But over these last 2 years, we've seen a dramatic increase in adoption, but not across the board either. So we're kind of still taking this from a relative beginner's approach to AI. Um, and here's what we'll cover today. Oops. So first, we're going to talk about the current state of AI in the workplace. There was a really great study that was just published this month on kind of habits of larger businesses, but business leaders and technology leaders at companies in terms of how they're viewing AI, what's working well, what isn't, what their concerns are, so on and so forth. So we'll go into that study a little bit. I think it's a really nice temperature check on the current state of AI in the business world. We're also going to cover President Trump's executive order on AI. So that's just a month old now. Um, Flew under the radar for some people, but I want to make sure we cover that. I'm not always the natural tech guy, but I am the natural compliance person. So I definitely want to dive into that executive order and what it could mean for your business and your AI plans for your business. We'll then go into a few select AI laws. So the real three states that have AI laws that either took effect this month or are going to be taking effect in 2026, what those means, how they may or may not be impacted by that executive order. Then we'll go into what I call kind of the AI image crisis or perception crisis. I think for if you poll the general public, I think we've gotten business leaders, you know, the C-suite really on board with AI and how it can benefit a business, benefit employees, so on and so forth. But I think around the actual workforce, there are different perceptions or different opinions on AI right now. So it kind of puts us as HR leaders in a tricky spot. How do we get this to work for us and get buy-in and not have it be a morale buster if we try to implement some of this AI that's really going to help us move forward? And then we'll go over a few kind of basic use cases for success if you're not already, how you may be able to start to implement AI in your business in a way that will get employees on board and kind of help get the ball rolling so that you can proceed and progress more and more as time goes on. We'll close with some tips, some do's and don'ts in terms of AI within your company. And then as Katie mentioned, we'll do our best to save some time for questions and answers. All right. So, quick legal disclaimer. This training is for educational purposes. It's from a HR best practices standpoint. Also should be current as of today, January 14th, 2026. And like many things, and AI is definitely no different. The laws are constantly changing. We're seeing new bills introduced and voted on a daily basis. So whether it's a new law or a precedent-setting court ruling, we're always on our toes and information can become outdated very quickly. If that's the case, if there's any important decisions that are made, we'll be sure to be communicating on that and educating you fine folks on things as they evolve. All right, so as I said, there was a really interesting study done, and this is a study that's been being done for, I believe, 19 years. I read it as published in the Harvard Business Review. It's in some other publications as well. It was done by an organization called New Vantage Partners, who I've actually worked with in the past, a really solid technology forward organization. So every year they do a survey called the AI and Data Leadership Executive Benchmark Survey. And so this is a survey that's invite only. It's sent to the most senior data and technology leaders at Fortune 1000 companies. So again, these are large firms. When you look at the list of participants, it's the large banks, it's Starbucks. I think the Boston Red Sox participated in the survey this year. So we are talking big businesses and these results and these findings, you know, probably won't apply to your mom and pop restaurant or auto body shop and things like that. But I think as we found, especially with technology, these larger companies will kind of usher in some of these things, and then before we know it, it's spread down market as well to your mid market and smaller businesses as well. So I found this information quite interesting, especially looking at a survey that goes year by year and asks similar questions year over year to see how has progressed. So large companies are investing in AI in a big way. You're hearing about that in the news. There's a lot of question. Is there an AI bubble? Is that going to burst? What's going to happen? As of right now, or at least as of the end of that last year, when people were submitting their responses to this survey to be formulated and published this month, 99% of the companies that responded, it was 110 companies that responded, are considering investment in data and AI a top business priority within their organization. and 90% of those respondents are increasing their investment in 2026. So this is something where a couple of years ago, as I said, companies were experimenting, playing around with it a little bit, hesitant to really invest, but that's changed dramatically since 2024. In terms of that adoption, companies that said they are using AI in production at scale was 39%. So nearly half of the respondents are using AI in a major way within their organization. And to, again, to speak to the difference over that 2 years makes, that was only 4.7% in 2024. So just a huge, almost tenfold increase in adoption at a large scale. And more than half of the respondents said they're at least using AI in a limited capacity within their organization. So again, more than half of these respondents that represent the Fortune 1000 are using AI at least in a limited capacity, if not in a major way. We're also seeing roles dedicated to data and dedicated to AI. So within this surveyed pool of large companies, 90% of the respondents have a chief data officer position at the company. So at the executive level, someone who's analyzing and leveraging data. And also a growing number of organizations are hiring a chief artificial intelligence officer as well, 38% of respondents there. So again, large investments both in technology, in resources, and in hiring as well when it comes to AI. Some other findings and takeaways that I found particularly interesting in the study, and this was a little bit reassuring to me as an HR person, is that responsible AI was an important component to almost every respondent, that they want to make sure that the AI that they're using is ethical, people focused, and that it's being responsible and it's not causing more harm than good. 54% of the respondents are seeing saw high or significant business impact in a positive way via AI. And for those, whether they're seeing it now or not quite yet, almost everybody said that in the long run, they feel that AI will have a beneficial impact on their business. In terms of what the biggest obstacles are, it's not on the tech side. It's not the artificial intelligence modules or programs not doing what they were supposed to do or having errors or things like that. The number one obstacle to adoption within an organization is getting the people to adopt it and the change management of it all. So we'll talk about that some more, but that is the big struggle that organizations are facing, that the technology is working as it should in most cases, but people are reluctant to adopt it. So with that being said, and from my viewpoint as an HR leader, and it was suggested in the survey too that maybe HR can serve a role. You're starting to see some organizations kind of meld the HR department with the AI leaders and with the data leaders because it is so important for the people operations to be in lockstep with whatever's going on the technology side. Otherwise, that obstacle with the people and the change is only going to worsen. All right, so let's talk about President Trump's AI executive order. So as I said, this kind of flew under the radar a little bit. It was signed on December 11th, right before we were heading into the holiday season. So a lot of people may not have caught this news. Also, I think there is some sense of executive order fatigue. I shared this when we did our legislative update webinar last month, but a fun fact that I learned is that President Trump has signed more executive orders in his first year of this term than he did in his entire first term a few years ago. So definitely been busy with the executive orders. I do think there is some level of executive order fatigue, especially if people aren't seeing instant results from those executive orders. But that being said, let's talk about this one. So the official title of the executive order was Ensuring a National Policy Framework for Artificial Intelligence. Now, you may remember when we did our last AI webinar a year or two ago, we covered President Biden's executive order regarding AI, which was really getting departments to make sure that AI was acting responsibly, make sure that there wasn't going to be a negative impact on the American workforce, creating oversight with AI, all of that. in his first month of presidency back in January of 2025, President Trump formally revoked the Biden era executive order on AI. So this is completely new, completely different. The Biden era executive order does not have any standing. It's officially been revoked. So what Trump's version does is really discourage laws at the state level in favor of a national framework that's going to kind of encourage further development and less oversight of artificial intelligence. So, what they're looking to do is enhance what they call the United States AI global dominance by creating minimally burdensome rules and regulations, and really looking to also encourage innovation at the same time. So, in terms of formal actions within the executive order, the first and probably most important is that this creates the uh, AI litigation task force within the Department of Justice. Excuse me. So, what this task force is set out to do is to investigate, inspect, target, and, if appropriate, litigate any state level AI laws that the administration determines to be troublesome. Definitely and especially targeting any programs that they feel omit or alter truthful information. So this kind of speaks to a previous executive order that touched on AI, where I believe they called it woke AI and eliminating woke AI from the federal government. Similarly, they're looking at AI laws at the state level that talk about discrimination and bias testing and things like that, and say that their expectation is that AI is going to spit out the truth, whether it's discriminatory or not, and to not infringe on those First Amendment protections that AI and AI businesses should have to kind of speak the truth, whatever that may be. In terms of a mechanism to really discourage states from passing their own AI laws, so the reason why we have this executive order, President Trump first tried to pass some formal legislation to do some of these things. With a law passed by Congress, there could be some more teeth to it. So if you attended our webinar on the One Big Beautiful Bill, you may recall that some of the previous versions of that bill had some language in it that would have, by law, prevented states from passing AI laws with the threat of them losing federal funding if they did so. Because this is an executive order, they're not allowed to quite do that. This isn't a bill that was passed by Congress. So instead, what they're doing here is potentially restricting access to states under what's known as the BEAD program, the broadband expanded access. So that funding can be limited. They're putting the power in some folks to take a look at states that have AI laws, and if they find that those are concerning and infringing on the spirit of this executive order, they're giving that agency the ability to restrict the BEAD funding to those states. Also looking for the FCC to create some reporting and disclosure standards around AI, as well as having the Federal Trade Commission create a policy statement. So we haven't seen that yet. I believe they had 90 days to create those. So look for those to come in the next couple of months. Speaking of legislation, there is some directive within this executive order to really push for Congress to pass some legislation that would preempt state laws. So obviously, it remains to be seen what the language of those laws look like and if they will ever come to fruition. And if so, what impact they'll have on existing AI laws versus ones that are yet to be passed. But the goal here, under the executive order and what they're urging Congress to do, is to take that next step of passing a law that would preempt states from passing their own AI regulations. What the executive order does make clear is that states are allowed and welcome to create AI regulation around a few key areas. So, first, if it has to do with child protection and safety, that's okay. Also, if it has to do with protecting and encouraging AI and technology infrastructure, those are generally have the president's blessing. And then also regulations that have to do with state government use of AI. Those have kind of been given the green light. But other than that, the president has directed the Department of Justice to scrutinize anything else that gets passed. So, that being said, as I mentioned at the top, we have had a few states that have passed AI laws, and whether or not the Department of Justice is going to challenge these and what the outcome of those laws are remains to be seen. But let's take a closer look at those three. All right, so first up, we have Colorado. This one was actually passed way back in 2024. It was originally set to begin next month in February. The governor decided to push that out and have some further discussions on it, potentially make some alterations to the bill. As of right now, the Colorado law is still in place and set to become active on June 30th of this year. So keep your eyes peeled. There are almost certainly going to be some changes, but let's talk about what it looks like as of today, January 14th. So what this does is it covers both developers, so your software and your AI companies, as well as deployers, so that would be us as employers, whoever is utilizing high risk AI systems. And how they define that is basically any AI that is making or heavily influencing significant decisions. So that might be for purposes of HR and what we're talking about today in terms of employment law, things like hiring, firing, promoting, demoting, measuring someone's performance, things like that. So the Colorado law requires both developers and deployers to take reasonable measures to prevent algorithmic discrimination. So that can be things like um, bias testing, other types of impact testing, and making sure that those results are formal and that both companies, meaning AI companies and technology companies, as well as the employers and businesses using these softwares, can feel confident that the AI has been thoroughly tested. Also need to disclose to employees and candidates when AI is being used as part of a decision, and also creates a appeal opportunity for if employees don't agree with the decision that was made or influenced by AI, that they have the right to appeal that decision. It also requires developers and deployers to do impact assessments. So to study the results as this software or technology is being used to see if is anything harmful or illegal going on as a result of this AI usage. The bill also includes a penalty mechanism of up to $20,000 per violation of the Colorado AI law. Next up, we have Illinois. So this is an AI regulation that started this year, a couple weeks ago on January 1st. And it specifically has protections regarding the use of AI for decisions involving hiring or firing, discipline, tenure, and training. And this requires a disclosure to any employees when AI is being used, and also, in a bit of a unique twist, uh, prohibits the use of zip codes when evaluating candidates. So, again, that's a unique wrinkle that I haven't seen in other state level AI laws, but to avoid discrimination based on where someone lives, zip codes cannot be factored into any type of candidate assessment or employee assessment. And then finally, and this may be a surprise to some of you, whereas we've been talking about AI regulations for some time in a lot of blue states, or at least purple states, as we'd call it, but Texas is the third state here that did pass an AI regulation that took effect January 1st. So this one is a little bit different. What it basically states is that AI systems can't be developed or deployed with an intent to discriminate. So, I interpret that as there can be some, mistakes, whereas the other ones really put more of an onus on developers and deployers to be more responsible and kind of predict and anticipate what could potentially happen. Whereas the Texas law says that there really needs to be an intent to discriminate for it to be a violation. One of the really cool things about, or unique things, I should say, about the Texas AI law is that it creates the formation of a regulatory sandbox program. So basically, an environment where both developers and employers can sign up, get approved, and if they're approved for the sandbox program, kind of deploy their AI technology for 36 months, test it, develop it, and face reduced to little kind of exposure from a regulatory standpoint. Should something go wrong, if they've been approved for this regulatory program, then they won't be facing fines and penalties if things don't quite work out. As part of the program, there is some quarterly reporting to the state required, but it does create a unique environment. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this is handled, what it looks like, what the results are, and if it ends up being beneficial for businesses or not. The state law in Texas also develops an AI council to oversee AI usage and AI development within the state. And this one does also have the penalty mechanism built in, where if there is found to be a violation, those fines can range from 10 to $12,000 per instance. All right, time for our next poll question. Hopefully you didn't already see this, but the next poll question is Merriam-Webster each year comes out with their word of the year. So for this year that just passed, what was Merriam-Webster's 2025 word of the year? All right, looks like we got a healthy amount of responses here. All right, so um, we've got the majority of respondents saying AI and deepfake. Those are both not the correct answer, actually. So the 2025 Merriam-Webster word of the year was slop. So slop is an AI related term and what it refers to. And if you've been online or been on social media anytime in recent memory, you've definitely experienced slop. It's the low quality images, the videos, and the content that just is kind of hastily put together, lazily done, but is very quickly taking over our screens. I'm sure you've seen it. You've seen the videos with with celebrities interacting with each other, or creating these fictitious events that never actually happened. You see it, I'm seeing it sometimes with like restaurants showing menu pages, pictures of menu items that are very clearly AI generated, or seeing it in content too, from emails and things like that, where you can just kind of tell, and you see some of those telltale signs where it's something that was thrown into ChatGPT or a similar program and just kind of pumped out and provided to the masses. So we're talking about that kind of stuff, generic, non-authentic content. It's got those telltale signs. Maybe it's that long dash that ChatGPT likes to use. Certain buzzwords people have started to pick up on as generally coming from AI, punctuation, things like that. Sometimes it'll look really sharp at first, but then you kind of realize this really is a whole lot of nothing. It's lacking character. It looks cool, but at the end of the day, it's somewhat forgettable. Now, slop might seem like innocent fun. Certainly people using it on Facebook and Instagram, it might be good for a laugh or whatever the intended purpose is. But when we talk about business use and responsible AI coming from a business, taking the easy way out and kind of using AI slop as part of your business can have some really harmful effects. Can definitely damage your reputation. You may be, again, say a high-end restaurant, but if your menu pictures aren't authentic, they're AI generated, people will start to have doubts. Um, if there's a lack of oversight, if you're just pumping things out and not proofreading, there can be challenges with that. It can really hurt the reputation of your company. Also, I think some of slop in the business world has come about just because there's a perceived productivity. If employees are all of a sudden 10 times, 100 times more efficient, and yeah, email that's going out to clients or a client communication or whatever it may be is taking a fraction of the time it used to, that's great, that's efficient, but how productive is it really if the quality is going to suffer and if it's not going to really fulfill its intended purpose? So there is this kind of perceived productivity, and I think there's some balance. We'll talk about it. There's definitely ways that AI can be a force multiplier and a huge time saver, but we want to make sure we're keeping our eye on quality at the end of the day. Also can be a morale or culture hit within the organization. We'll talk about perception in a second, but if AI is replacing independent thought of our talent, that can be of a concern. In many cases, we hired people for a reason. We like their perspective, we like their lens, we like their background and where they're coming from. So if we replace their thoughts with AI's thoughts, what are we losing culturally and from a morale standpoint when we do so? And then, as I said before, if the information is incorrect, that's a huge concern. So, what to do if you feel or are kind of stuck in this cycle where we're saying, yeah, we are utilizing AI slop and we're putting ourselves at risk or exposing ourselves? First, learn how to spot it. There are guides online if you don't feel you can do it with an untrained eye, but learn how to spot it. Teach your managers and supervisors how to spot it, especially if it's something that you don't want. If you want more quality control, learn how to spot the slop and call it out. So, call it out. If you have an AI policy, if you don't, I recommend you do. I recommend having something in here in terms of what are not just allowable uses for AI, but what are expected uses for AI versus what should AI not be used for, or how should it not be used in a way that would potentially sacrifice quality or create slop that's unwanted in your workplace. I think whether this is part of your formal policy or just part of your procedures, layers of approval when AI is utilized. You do not want something to be spit out of any AI program and publish that as is without a second set of eyes. We've seen many, many businesses get into hot water or getting into embarrassing situations because they didn't have that human element to oversee or fact check or proofread, and the results have been quite troublesome for businesses of all sizes. And also, it isn't too late to scrub your past output. Great time, whether it's having someone do it or doing it yourself, kind of looking back at what you've utilized AI for in the last year or so, and is there anything there that's questionable or that might not really properly represent your business and the quality that you want to have out there? All right, so let's talk about AI's image crisis. So I'm going to lean on another recent poll. This one was published in September or October of last year, so just a couple months ago. And this was a poll of Americans, just average day-to-day Americans, not business leaders or anything like that. And they kind of asked about people's perceptions of AI, kind of, in light of all the slop that's out there or how they're using it in their personal daily lives, things like that. And from this Pew Research poll, half of respondents felt that AI over time is going to worsen people's ability to think creatively and form meaningful relationships. Half also said that they're more concerned than excited about the impact that AI is having in their daily lives. And 57 saw it as there being a high potential societal risk. On the flip side, in terms of optimism, there were 73% of these respondents said that they would be open to letting AI assist them at least a little bit with their day-to-day activities. So again, I think as business leaders, sometimes we get really caught up and really enthusiastic about all that AI can do, and it's really awesome, and there's some really good things, and I encourage every business to look into AI, and I'm sure there are ways for it to be really awesome. But at the same time, coming from the HR standpoint, we need to make sure we're doing this in a way that we're getting buy-in, that we're doing so in a way that those investments won't go to waste, and that we're going to be able to really open some eyes for our employees and let them see that, some of their perceptions about AI may be correct, but some of them may be wrong as well, and that there is a lot of good that can come from proper and responsible AI utilization. So really, I think this states it well. As businesses, we can really help create a positive experience for our teams, our people, and at the end of the day, our customers, and ultimately usher in a wave of positive and responsible AI adoption. So that's my honest opinion on it. I think that through some of these use cases we're going to talk about in a second that we can shed some light. We can't always control the narrative that AI has. Maybe people are overly positive about it and love it because they use it at home and it's had a positive impact on their lives, or maybe it's been negative. Maybe they're fearful of losing their job or their position, or are worried about AI becoming too powerful or the AI bubble and what impact that'll have on our economy. So there are things that are outside of our control, and we have to understand that and accept it. But we do have the opportunity to kind of flip the switch a little bit, have some positive perception, and make it mutually beneficial both for the employees and our business function as well. So let's go into a few of these. And again, I'm just scratching the surface here. These are just some ideas. You may or may not already be implementing some of these, but I, I put these ones in a way kind of targeting an audience that may not be using a ton of AI in their personal lives, may have some skepticism, may have some doubts, and really what can we do to get them trying it out and seeing some of the value? So, first case, building trust by reducing busy work. I think this is the strongest argument you can have for employees that are overwhelmed, stressed out, having trouble getting their things done. Let's let you focus on the stuff we want you to be doing and allow you to hand off, at least partially, some of the busy work to AI. So that can be things like having AI create meeting agenda drafts, outlines for reports, outlines for presentations, those kind of things. One of my favorite uses for AI is having it summarize long documents or long data sets and spreadsheets. Does a really good job with that. Or proofreading, editing documents, and communication. So I love taking a first stab at something, putting it together, and then seeing what AI's thoughts on it are. Again, I may stick with my original wording, but it's good to get a second set of eyes on it, even if it is AI eyes. So, in terms of how to frame this to your staff, you want to make it clear. The people here are going to own the tone, they're going to own the final approval, the judgment, but AI can provide a first draft or maybe some suggestions or summary or follow up. Next use case, meeting efficiency. So you've probably seen it if you use Zoom or other meeting platforms, you can turn AI on, and that can be a useful tool. I know there are still some people skeptical for it, but I encourage everyone to at least give it a try. So what the AI can do, it can summarize your meetings for you. It can come up with the action items that were discussed during the meeting. It can create and publish the deadlines and who owns these respective deadlines, and also create a follow-up document for you if you want to have a kind of a synopsis or a debrief, it can create that for you. So, how to frame this to your staff, really emphasize that the output's going to be focused on outcomes. It's not going to be analyzing anyone's performance or any type of participation metrics. It's not here to judge how a meeting went necessarily. It's really focused on the actionable items. Next is process improvement. So this is something that I've used myself. I've found it to be very helpful. Um, you can utilize AI to help identify within your process what inefficiencies there are. It can help create workflows. It can suggest some automation opportunities that you may have overlooked or not be aware of. It can really help become a productivity multiplier for you. And one thing that I just learned today from speaking to one of my colleagues is that it can also provide some really handy tech support. So my coworker was having some trouble with a login experience on a technology platform. So reached out to support. Support gave her some directions, but they didn't really make sense. It was very kind of jargon heavy, and she couldn't figure out where to get started or how to get this resolved. So she took that communication from the tech support people and put it into her AI instance and kind of said, "What does this all mean? How do I make sense of this?" And so what it did was kind of reworded it all, put it out there in a much more digestible format, and she was able to solve our problem that way. So also can be great for installing software, installing hardware, devices, things like that. something I hadn't thought of until I had this conversation just earlier today, but tech support is a real way that AI can show value to your users. How to frame this one? Let employees know they're empowered to decide what to seek improvement with, and that again, they have the ultimate decision-making authority when it comes to these suggestions and what they're actually going to implement. All right, next we have the thought partner. So I think more and more, especially when it comes to remote workers, people are feeling on an island sometimes, whether they're a department of one or not, maybe they are. But even when they're not, I think sometimes colleagues can feel disconnected and feel like they're really lacking that thought partner that would help them come up with new and better ideas. So AI can be a great partner for this. It can help with brainstorming sessions. It can help with some scenario present preparation. So hey, I'm going to be making the sales pitch to this customer. This is their background. This is what we're trying to sell them. What are some objections that I can anticipate, and how am I going to overcome those objections? Similarly, can do some stress testing. What are some, here's my situation at work. Here's what we're going to be rolling out. What are some potential threats that we may not be considering, and how can we avert those? Also, coming up with alternatives. So here's what I'm thinking. What am I missing? What are some other ideas that may help us get to the same outcome? So again, the framework here, no matter how busy your coworkers are or how alone you feel, you've got instant access 24 hours a day to thoughts, ideas, and more. Next, learning and upskilling. So I think within our workforce, training and development, especially as budgets tighten, can be difficult to really invest in. So there are a lot of AI tools out there that can really customize a learning path and may be able to cover topics that your in-house training staff may not have knowledge about or expertise on. So AI can be utilized, especially with your high potential folks, create some customized learning paths. They can be modified for each individual based on their learning style, what works best for them, what the content should be, where they're starting off. Maybe you've got one employee who's a novice with a certain topic, whereas you have someone who has a little bit of experience or maybe some past experience and needs to sharpen their skills. AI can meet them where they're at. Again, even when there's a lack of institutional knowledge, AI can kick in some of that and help pick up the slack. And also, as I said, similar to the tech support piece, if whatever training content you have isn't getting through to somebody, if it's not being absorbed, AI can often be used to rephrase things, reword things, present them in a different manner that your employees may have better engagement with and may adopt more easily. And then we've got the smart assistant. So, again, I think, ever since the economic downturn 15 years ago or so, more than that, we started to see a reduction in administrative staff, assistants, and things like that. And while many of us learned to do without, we don't necessarily have to anymore. We've got AI that can really serve as a smart assistant to employees of all levels. Can help you prioritize tasks. If you're thinking about something, you can ask for the AI opinion. It can oftentimes call out risks, other considerations that you may be neglecting or failing to recognize. Depending on how you set it up, you can also link it to data for accurate timelines, projected outcomes that can learn over time, and based on how you've done previous things and how long those have taken you, giving you reasonable deadlines to use so to know how long something's reasonably going to take to accomplish. All right. So again, those are some examples that should apply to your general employee workforce. Certainly from an HR perspective, there are some more direct ways. I think the most common way that we're seeing businesses utilize AI from an HR standpoint is definitely on the recruiting and hiring front, being able to screen candidates, move forward with folks that seem like they'll be a good fit. Can also help with creating behavioral interview questions based on an employee's background and resume. kind of help bring out any questions that may not have been answered by their survey, by their resume rather, and their cover letter. So uh, I think it's a great tool for the recruiting and interviewing and selection process. Caveat being that is also really ground zero for discrimination claims. So you do want to do your due diligence, make sure that any AI tools you're using in your recruiting function have been bias tested. So if they're doing business in New York City and they're compliant, they've definitely gone through some rigorous bias testing. But just a good question to ask your vendors. All right. So as for the do's and don'ts, ultimately you know your workforce better than I do, but in terms of how to message this, really emphasize that AI is here to create efficiencies and not replace people. Again, maybe you're a business who is looking to replace people in the short term with AI, and that's your decision. If you're, on the other hand, are looking to get some buy-in, have AI ingrained within your organization and help making your employees more efficient, maybe saving on additional headcount or labor costs down the road, I think you want to be careful with your messaging and really focus on the efficiencies and rather than the replacement. That this is about saving time versus cutting costs. Be careful with your timing as well. If you've just gone through a reduction in force or some layoffs, that might not be the best time to roll out new AI and make stoke more fear in the existing and remaining workers. When you're talking about success stories, do your best to pull those from the employees' peers rather than from leaders or executives. It'll just have much more relatability. Be really specific about how you envision AI impacting your company and what you can see it helping with. Talk to your managers, talk to your supervisors, get their take. Where could we place AI? Where could we experiment with AI that would have a positive impact on our staff? And be focused on that and get as specific as you can. I'm a huge proponent of getting input from teams. I'm naturally a democratic leader, but um, here's a couple questions to ask that could get you some really good ideas. A, what are your biggest time wasters? I think that can help you back into some really good AI use cases, as well as what tasks do you do on a regular basis that you feel are below your pay grade? Those are generally going to be great things for AI to help with or take over. Find your testers. So do an analysis of your workforce and again, look at it with an open mind. It may not be the people who are the most technologically advanced. You might and probably want some folks involved in the testing of new AI to be your more average user. You don't want to have all of your tech whizzes testing out the AI and trying it out and saying it works great, and then you roll it out to the rest of your workforce and they don't know how to use it and just ignore it and let it gather dust. So find your testers, find people who I'd really focus on the folks that are best at giving honest feedback. I think those are your best candidates for being testers. Um, Make it clear, both in policy and practice, that AI is an assistant. It is not an authority figure. You do not, at least at this stage in the game, and this stage of technology, you do not want AI making decisions for you. It is an assistant. It is here to give you some results, summarize some things, but you need that human element to look things over and be the decision maker. And then, as I said before, if you don't already, really consider implementing an AI policy in your handbook or as a standalone. You want it to cover what AI should be used for, and probably more importantly, what it shouldn't. Do you want AI to be used as an internal tool? Is it okay for it to be client facing? What needs to take place? Who needs to approve anything AI generated before it hits the public or our client base? And what does the company plan to use AI for? What departments, what divisions, what functions? Invest in training. So I know this can be tough with budgets tightening, but take some time. Find this is where to use your tech folks and your tech savvy folks. Get them on board, get them trained, train the trainer, and make sure you're providing some education. Don't just, again, spend all this money on AI tools and then roll it out without any type of training. It will not get used optimally. Early on in the process, Keep your ear close to the ground. Talk to people. Step into an office. Make a phone call. Have a follow-up meeting. What's going well with the AI? Also, what can we improve upon? But listen for those success stories and share those far and wide. Some other considerations, custom GPTs can be a great tool, whether you're creating that on your own or using an organization. Certainly, if you need recommendations, you can reach out to us. We work with some great companies that work in AI and can create a custom GPT for your organization. So that can be things like building a chatbot to house some of your internal documents, whether it be your employee handbook or procedure guides, SOPs, whatever it is, having that internal tool and that internal resource where employees now have instant access to answers to 90% of their questions, that can create some real efficiencies in your workforce. And depending how you structure it, you can have these GPTs tied to all different internal resources, different programs and softwares that you're using, and it can really coexist with those things and really optimize your company's usage of those. I'm also a big proponent of AI consultants. Uh, if it's something where you're considering a sizable investment or commitment to AI, that can sometimes be a great way to really unlock the full potential of what you're thinking of or what your vision is. Again, if you are interested in seeking out AI consultants, we can make recommendations on those as well. Keep an eye on compliance as the regulations develop. So based on this executive order and barring any legislative action that preempts the states, I fully expect states to continue to proceed with AI regulation. So if you're, especially if you're a multi-state employer, if you have remote employees in other states, make sure you're keeping up on this because until we see the Department of Justice start to have some success in regulating AI and squashing existing AI laws, I think states are going to proceed business as usual. So you want to make sure any AI you're utilizing is within the constraints of those respective laws. And as I said before, especially when it comes to recruiting AI technologies, but really any that are going to be used for HR purposes, make sure that those programs have undergone some bias testing. All right, let's see. We've got a few questions here. Excuse me. All right, are these processes using chat or other platforms? So it depends. I think especially if you're newer to AI, ChatGPT is a great place to start. It's a great place to play around with. I think one of the advantages of using a custom GPT, whether it's through chat or other platforms, is that you can have some more control about the security and the privacy. So if, and that's something we didn't really touch on, we touched upon in our last AI presentation, but that's obviously crucial. As you're utilizing AI within your business, you need to know the information that's being put in, what is being done with that data. Is it going out? Is it helping further develop the learning model? Is it something that is strictly kept in-house? What is this AI vendor's security policies? What do they do with the information and the data? That's going to be paramount in your decision making about which platforms to go with. Again, one of the advantages sometimes with the higher levels of ChatGPT, the more premium products, or if you do a custom GPT, is you do have the option of keeping that data secure and only within your organization and not having it get out anywhere. And that gives you a little bit more freedom to be a little bit more experimental, allow for sensitive data to be put in those as long as you're confident that it's not going anywhere. Uh, Suggestions on how to find affordable qualified AI consultants. Yeah, at a high level, I would definitely say interview several folks, get an idea, find some references, look for a portfolio, real world examples of what they've been able to do for businesses. Again, we know of a handful that are very good. If you'd like some recommendations, we'd be happy to pass those along. Ultimately, I think consultants as a rule, I think they all have their wheelhouses and their strengths. So depending on what your industry is, what you're potentially looking for AI to do for you, one consultant may be better than the other, whereas that other consultant may be better for a different business looking to do something else or in a different industry. So it's really on a case by case basis. So how can AI be used for continuous education and training? So it really depends on what you're looking to educate or train on. If it's something that's industry specific, you may need to supply it with the base material or the knowledge set. If it's something more general, a lot of these GPTs and other AI tools will have that within their database and be able to provide some education and training. So it really depends on how nuanced the training needs to be and what the subject matter is. And then how would an organization reinforce its role while also making individuals to run the gauntlet in the event employees make equivocal or fictitious claims? Yeah, so I think oversight is the name of the game here. We really need to be clear with our expectations, with our requirements, with our policies and rules in terms of what AI is to be used for and what it isn't. None of this AI experimentation or utilization comes without risk. I think it's very similar for those of you who have been in the workforce for a while. A lot of companies used to restrict internet access. I know at my first office jobs, we could not access the internet. We could email clients and things like that, and maybe we had access to some kind of online research tools, but we couldn't just go out to Google or anything like that. It was heavily restricted, and obviously that's changed. And I think we're kind of still at that stage now with AI where we need to carefully monitor and potentially restrict what what capabilities employees have with AI. And again, that can be different from workforce to workforce and how much you trust your workers and know that they'll be able to be responsible with it. But there are certainly more ethical questions and scenarios than we can hope to cover in the webinar today. But I think it brings up some good points. I think we just need to hammer home that AI is a tool. It is an assistant, and ultimately, at the end of the day, employees are responsible for their output. So it's in their best interest to whatever they're utilizing AI for and whatever they're gaining from this AI experience that they're checking it, they're verifying it, they're reviewing it, because ultimately, even if it was created by AI, if they're using it, if they're publishing it, if they're sending it to a client or using it internally, that they're responsible for it. In terms of free AI tools, there are many out there. Again, if you're new to it, ChatGPT is a great place to start. There's obviously Gemini, Copilot, all those wide-ranging things, but there are also some really good, more focused tools around recruiting and selection, around training and development, all of that. Sometimes these will have an industry focus. Again, definitely take a look at them before you do anything in terms of using them in a real professional environment with real people, real candidates. Um, Anything that could affect an employee status or a candidate status, make sure you do your homework. Make sure they've gone through their bias testing and that they're on the up and up. Believe we're just about at time, so I'll leave it on that. I thank you very much for your time, and I really enjoyed covering this topic, and there'll be more to come in the coming months and in 2026 on this topic for sure. But back to you, Katie.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. We are so excited that you all stuck with us and joined us today. We do have a quick um, post-webinar survey that I'm going to drop into the chat here. That survey does have a AI checklist that we are putting together and forming with our HR professionals. So if you are interested in that checklist, please make sure that you fill out that survey and let us know, and we will send it your way. So we would also love your feedback so that will be in the survey as well. And if you have any future recommendations for topics that you would like us to speak on, please drop that into that survey. So at MP, we know you have choices when it comes to technology and HR partners, and we provide the same comprehensive payroll and HCM solutions as any big name provider. But what sets us apart is our personalized service and hands-on HR expertise with people like Paul that you got to hear from today. Our SHRM certified consultants work alongside clients to navigate compliance, training, and the full employee lifecycle, not just a system setup. So if you'd like to continue the conversation, our team is here to help. We also next month are going to be having another webinar This one is going to be put on by an attorney, and I'll drop it into the chat. So if you're interested in it, please register for that one as well. We have these webinars each month. They are full of great content. They are free. You can get SHRM credits. So please check out our full list of upcoming webinars, and we look forward to seeing you again. So on behalf of the entire MP team, thank you for spending your time with us today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.